The desert wind whispered secrets that morning. Ethan Walsh rode along the riverbank, the Montana sun burning his back. 35 years of solitude weighed on his shoulders like desert stones. 5 years ago, he had lost everything: his father, his home, his faith in justice. Now he lived alone in a cabin at the edge of the territory, where nobody asked questions and nobody expected answers. His horse snorted, nervous. Ethan pulled the reins and looked ahead. Something wasn't right. Then he saw it. A body, lying among the rocks by the water. Young. Apache, by his traditional leather and beaded clothing. Motionless. Ethan dismounted cautiously, his hand near his colt. Apache territory was no place for unprepared white men. But something pushed him forward. The young man was breathing, barely. He had a deep head wound, dried blood staining his black hair. Burning fever. Maybe 16 years old, perhaps 17. Eyes closed, face contorted in pain. Ethan looked around. Nobody. Only the river, the rocks, and Montana's infinite sky. Every instinct screamed at him to leave. The Apache didn't forgive. His father had died in what they called an Apache raid. Bitterness had grown like weeds in his heart for years. But this was just a boy dying alone by a river. "Damn it," Ethan muttered. He made his decision. He carefully loaded him onto his horse, wrapped the wounded head with his bandana, and galloped toward his cabin. 3 miles of dusty road, praying the boy would survive. The night was long and brutal. Ethan cleaned the wound. Someone had hit him with something heavy, maybe a rock or a rifle butt. He bandaged the young man's head, gave him water when he half woke, fought against the fever consuming the thin body. He didn't sleep. He only watched, remembering how his own father had died with no one to help him. At dawn, the boy was breathing easier. The fever had dropped. Ethan allowed himself a sigh of relief and went out to the porch for coffee. Then his world stopped. The valley in front of his cabin was full of Apache warriors, hundreds of them, maybe 1,000. On horseback, armed with rifles, bows, spears, forming a perfect circle around his small home. The silence was more terrifying than any war cry. A man moved to the front, older, maybe 50 years old, his face marked by battles and wisdom, eagle feathers in his hair, absolute authority in every movement. The chief. "You!" The chief's voice cut the air like a knife. He spoke English with a heavy but clear accent. "White man, you have my son." Ethan felt his blood freeze. His son? He began, but the chief interrupted him. "You kidnapped Thomas. We saw him enter your cabin. Now give him back, or your blood will water this land." The warriors tensed their weapons, hundreds of sights converging on Ethan. "Wait!" Ethan raised his hands, dropping his coffee. "I didn't kidnap him. I found him injured by the river. He was dying. I just tried to save him." "Lies!" a younger warrior shouted from behind. "White men always lie!" The chief raised a hand, demanding silence. His eyes, dark, penetrating, studied Ethan with burning intensity. "Why should I believe you?" "Because if I wanted to kill him, he'd already be dead." Ethan kept his voice firm, despite his fear. "Come in and see. I treated him. I saved his life. I didn't know who he was. I only saw a boy in need." The silence stretched like a taut rope about to break. Then, a figure appeared beside the chief. A young woman, maybe 25 years old, dressed in deerskin decorated with turquoise beads, black hair to her waist, eyes shining with fierce intelligence. She moved with a warrior's grace and a leader's presence. "Father," she said in Apache, then switched to English. "Let me go in. I'll see if he speaks the truth." The chief hesitated, then nodded. "Go, Istas, but be careful." Istas climbed the porch steps, passing Ethan without looking at him. She entered the cabin. Ethan waited, feeling 1,000 gazes fixed on his back. The minutes dragged like hours. Finally, Istas emerged. Her expression had changed, distrust replaced by something like surprise. "Father," her voice was softer now. "He speaks the truth. Thomas is inside. He has clean bandages, fresh water beside him. Someone fought all night to bring down his fever." The chief slowly dismounted, climbing the steps. He passed Ethan, who braced for the worst, and entered. Ethan heard an exclamation in Apache. Quick steps. Then silence. When the chief emerged, his eyes shone with contained tears.
"My son lives. He breathes."
He looked at Ethan with an impossible-to-decipher expression.
"You saved him."
"Yes." "Why?" The question was genuine, confused. "Your people hate us. We hate your people. Why risk everything for an Apache?" Ethan swallowed. "Because it was the right thing. Because nobody deserves to die alone by a river. Because..." He stopped. "Because maybe I'm tired of the hate." From inside, a weak voice called, "Father?" The chief turned quickly. Istas was already entering. Moments later, she appeared helping Thomas, pale, weak but alive, out into the light. Thomas looked at Ethan with glassy but grateful eyes.
"He saved me, Father. He found me. Brought me here."
The chief embraced his son carefully, as if he were made of glass. When he finally released him, he turned to Ethan. "My name is Kuruk. This is my son Thomas and my daughter Istas." His voice trembled slightly. "You have my gratitude, Ethan Walsh. Something rare between our peoples." "How do you know my name?" "We asked. We know who lives here." Kuruk paused, his face darkening. "But I also know who your father was. James Walsh, dead 10 years ago in what your people called an Apache raid." The air grew heavy again. "Yes," Ethan said coldly. "That's why I live alone." Istas spoke then, her voice soft but firm. "We didn't kill your father." Ethan looked at her, disbelief mixed with old rage.
"What?"
"It's true," Kuruk added. "That night, my brother Chatan also died. They said white men killed him. Both sides lost blood. Both sides blamed the other." He paused. "But maybe we were both wrong."
Ethan's world tilted. The silence in the valley was heavier than lead. Ethan Walsh looked at the 1,000 faces surrounding him, Apache warriors mounted in perfect circles, their weapons gleaming under the Montana sun. In the center, Chief Kuruk stood motionless as a stone statue, his eyes fixed on the cabin where his son lay.
"I'll go in,"
said a firm woman's voice. All eyes turned to her. Istas, the chief's daughter, dismounted from her horse with fluid, confident movements. She wore a deerskin dress decorated with turquoise beads, and her black hair fell in a thick braid over her shoulder. There was something in her eyes, a mixture of distrust and curiosity, that made Ethan feel she saw beyond his white skin.
"Father, let me verify if this man speaks the truth," she said in Apache, then repeated in Spanish so Ethan would understand.
Kuruk hesitated only a moment before nodding.
"Go, daughter. But be careful. White men are cunning as serpents."
Istas climbed the worn wooden steps, passing Ethan without looking directly at him. He stepped back, giving her space, his hands still visible and empty. The tension was so dense he could feel it in his lungs with each breath. She entered the cabin. The minutes crawled like hours. Ethan waited on the porch, conscious of every movement he made, every breath. One sudden move could unleash a storm of arrows and bullets. The warriors watched him like hawks, ready to attack at the slightest sign of betrayal. Finally, Istas emerged. Her expression had changed, hardness replaced by something like surprise, perhaps even respect. "Father," her voice was clear and strong, "the white man speaks the truth. Thomas is inside. He has clean bandages, freshly changed this morning, fresh water by his bed. Someone fought all night against his fever. I can see the sweat marks on the blankets, the herbs used to lower his temperature." A murmur ran through the warriors. Some lowered their weapons slightly. Kuruk dismounted slowly, his face an impossible-to-read mask. He climbed the steps with measured paces, each one resonating like a war drum. He passed Ethan, who could smell the tanned leather and campfire smoke, and entered the cabin. Ethan heard a muffled exclamation in Apache, quick steps. Then, the most beautiful sound he'd heard in hours, the soft laugh of relief from a father finding his son alive. When Kuruk emerged, his eyes shone with tears he refused to shed before his warriors. "My son lives. He breathes. He's recovering." The chief's voice was thick with emotion. He looked at Ethan with an intensity that seemed to see inside his soul. "You saved him. Why?" Ethan chose his words carefully. Because it was the right thing. His tribe or language didn't matter. He was an injured boy who needed help. Any decent man would have done the same. "Not any man," Kuruk said slowly. "Most of your people see us as animals. They shoot first, ask questions later. But you—" He stopped, struggling with concepts that contradicted years of experience. "You risked everything to save an enemy." "He wasn't my enemy. He was just a boy." From inside, a weak voice called in Apache. Kuruk turned quickly. Istas was already entering, moving with the grace of someone trained in healing. Moments later, she appeared helping Thomas, pale as the moon, with white bandages wrapping his head, out into the daylight. Thomas blinked against the bright sun, his legs trembling. When his eyes adjusted, he sought Ethan and found him. "You," he whispered in halting Spanish. "You found me. By the river. I was dying." "What happened?" Kuruk placed a gentle hand on his son's shoulder. "Who did this to you?" Thomas closed his eyes, concentrating on remembering. "White men. 3 or 4. They wore clothes like soldiers, but without uniforms. They attacked me when I went to check the traps. One hit my head with something hard. I fell into the river. I thought I would die there." Istas exchanged a quick glance with her father. Something passed between them, a silent understanding Ethan couldn't decipher. Kuruk turned to Ethan, his posture relaxing slightly for the first time. "My name is Kuruk, leader of this Apache band. This is my son Thomas, and my daughter Istas." He paused, as if the next words cost him physically. "You have my gratitude, Ethan Walsh. A rare gift between our peoples." "How do you know my name?" "We asked in the nearest town. Merchants talk. They say you're a solitary man who lives apart from everyone, causes no trouble, only seeks peace." Kuruk studied his face. "They also say your father died 10 years ago in what they called an Apache raid." The air grew dense again. Ethan felt old rage climb up his throat, but he kept it down. "Yes, James Walsh, my father. They found his body with Apache arrows in his back." "And so you hate us," Kuruk said. It wasn't a question. "No." The answer surprised even Ethan. "I hated for a time. I hated everyone and everything. But hate—" He searched for the right words. "Hate didn't bring my father back. It only made me bitter and alone. So I let it go. Or at least I tried." Istas stepped forward. Her presence had a weight that commanded attention without demanding it. "Ethan Walsh, there's something you should know. Something that might change how you see the past." "Istas," Kuruk warned. "No, father. If this man saved Thomas with such courage, he deserves the truth." She turned to Ethan, her dark eyes reflecting something like ancient pain. 10 years ago, the same night your father died, my uncle, my father's brother, was also murdered. Chetan was his name. We found him with white rifle bullets in his chest. Ethan felt as if the ground moved beneath his feet. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that night, both sides lost blood. Your people blamed the Apache, we blamed the whites. But..." Istas looked at her father, who nodded slowly. "But our wise elder Takala always doubted. She saw things that night that made no sense." "What kind of things?" Kuruk took over. "The arrows in your father's back. They were poorly made, not like the ones we make, crooked, unbalanced. And the bullets that killed my brother were the type only soldiers use, not farmers or merchants." Ethan's brain worked quickly, connecting pieces he'd never considered. "You're suggesting someone else killed both men, someone who wanted our peoples to hate each other more?" "I'm not suggesting. I know." Kuruk spat on the ground in disgust. "There are white men who want our lands. They've always wanted our lands. If they can make us look like dangerous savages, the government will help them drive us out." Istas continued, her voice softer now. "After that night, the war between our peoples worsened. More attacks, more deaths, more hate, all while rich men bought Apache lands for almost nothing when we were forced to leave." Ethan sat heavily on his porch steps, his mind spinning. 10 years. 10 years blaming the wrong people. 10 years of bitterness built on lies. "Do you have any idea who?" His voice came out hoarse. "We suspect a man. His name is Silas Blackwood. He owns half the territory east of here. But he's powerful, has friends in the government, mercenaries who do his dirty work." Kuruk crossed his arms. "We have no proof. Only suspicions and the words of our elder who saw shadows that night." Thomas, leaning on his sister, spoke weakly. "The men who attacked me. One mentioned a name. Blackwood. He said his boss Blackwood would be pleased to have another Apache incident to report." Silence fell like an anvil. Ethan looked up, finding Kuruk's eyes. In that moment, something passed between them. A recognition of shared enemies, shared pain, shared injustice. "Then we don't hate each other," Ethan said slowly. "We were made to hate each other." "Yes," Kuruk answered simply. "And now what?" Ethan stood up. "What do we do with this truth?" "First, we heal," Istas said practically. "Thomas needs more days of rest before he can travel. And you..." She looked at Ethan with evaluating eyes. "You need to decide if this truth changes anything." "What do you mean?" "I mean now you know we didn't kill your father, but your people still hate us. Our people still hate yours. Truth doesn't change centuries of bloodshed." Her voice softened slightly. "But maybe it can begin to heal some wounds." Kuruk signaled to his warriors. "We'll camp here tonight. In the morning, we'll take Thomas back to our camp." "Wait," Ethan said. "Istas is right. Thomas needs more care before traveling. He has a severe concussion. Moving him too soon could kill him." Istas nodded. "It's true. He needs at least 3 more days of rest." Kuruk frowned, divided between the desire to take his son home and medical wisdom. Ethan made a decision. "Bring him to my cabin. It has a real bed. It's clean. I can continue caring for him. You and your warriors can camp nearby. Watch me if you don't trust me yet." "It's not about trust," Kuruk said carefully. "It's about safety. If other white men see an Apache camp here, there could be trouble." Then camp behind that ridge. Ethan pointed to a rock formation half a mile away. Out of sight from the main road. I'll keep Thomas here. Istas can stay to help with his care.
Istas's eyes widened slightly, surprise mixed with something else. You're inviting me to stay in your house? In the guest room, with the door closed if you want, but yes, you need to be near your brother. Ethan looked at Kuruk. Unless that breaks some Apache law I don't know about.
Kuruk studied Ethan for long seconds. Finally, a small smile, almost imperceptible, touched his lips. You're a strange man, Ethan Walsh, but I think you're a good man. He turned to his daughter. Istas, stay with your brother. I'll camp with the warriors nearby. If you need anything, just call. Yes, Father. 3 days passed like a strange dream. Thomas recovered slowly under the joint care of Ethan and Istas. The cabin, once a place of silent solitude, now vibrated with life. Istas cooked with herbs Ethan had never seen, created medicines that smelled of earth and sky, sang Apache songs softly while bandaging her brother's head. Ethan watched her work, fascinated by her competence and grace. There was something about her that awakened parts of himself he believed dead since losing his father. On the third night, while Thomas slept deeply, Ethan and Istas sat on the porch under 1,000,000 stars. The silence between them was comfortable now, not tense as before. Thank you, Istas finally said, for all this. You didn't have to do it. Yes, I did, Ethan responded. Your brother needed help. That's reason enough. Not for most white men.
Then I guess I'm not like most white men?
Istas smiled slightly. No, you're not. She paused. Can I ask you something personal? Go ahead. Why do you live so alone? A man your age should have family, wife, children. Ethan looked at the distant mountains. I had all that planned once, before my father died. After, I don't know, the pain made me someone different, harder, more closed off. The women in town looked at me and saw someone broken, and they were right. You're not broken, Istas said softly. You're wounded. There's a difference. What's broken can't be fixed. What's wounded can heal. Their gazes met and held. Something passed between them in that moment. A recognition, a connection that went beyond words. Then, a figure emerged from the shadows. An elderly Apache woman, her face like tanned leather, her eyes bright as obsidian beads. She moved soundlessly, like a spirit. Takala, Istas said, standing respectfully. I didn't hear you arrive. The old learned to walk softly. The elder looked at Ethan with penetrating intensity. So you're the white man who saved our young Thomas? Yes, ma'am. Don't call me ma'am. I'm Takala, keeper of our stories, knower of our secrets. She sat without invitation, her presence commanding respect. I came to tell you something important, Ethan Walsh. Something only I know. What is it? The night your father died, I was nearby, gathering herbs under the full moon. I saw what happened. Her eyes narrowed, remembering. I saw 3 white men dressed as Apache clumsy, moving badly, like children playing dress-up. Ethan's heart beat faster. Did you recognize them? One. He had a scar here. Takala traced a line from her eye to her jaw. And he worked for the rich man, Blackwood. I'd seen him before in town. Why didn't you ever say anything? To whom? To the white soldiers who don't believe us? To the judges who see savages when they look at us? Takala spat. I told my people. But without proof, we were just another Apache band with stories nobody would listen to. Istas leaned forward. Takala, does that man still live? The one with the scar? Yes, his name is Garrett. He's now foreman at Blackwood's ranch. Ethan stood up, his body tense as a rope.
Then we have a witness. And we have a name. We can expose this.
It's not that simple, Takala warned. Blackwood is powerful. He has friends, money, lawyers. What do you have?
I have the truth.
The old woman laughed, a sound like dry leaves. Truth is beautiful but weak against gold. You need more than truth. You need proof. What kind of proof? Documents, written orders, witnesses who will speak. Something the lawmen can't ignore. Takala stood up, her bones creaking. But be careful, young one, Blackwood is a snake. If he knows you're investigating, he'll kill you like he killed your father. After Takala left, Ethan and Istas remained in silence for long minutes. Finally, Istas spoke. What will you do? What I must do. Find proof. Expose Blackwood. Give justice to my father and your uncle.
It's dangerous. I know.
You could die. I know that too. Istas looked at him with eyes bright with contained tears. Then you won't go alone. My father and I will help you. This is our fight too. Ethan shook his head. I can't ask you that. If something goes wrong... You're not asking. I'm offering. Her voice was firm as stone. Ethan, for the first time in 10 years, we have a chance at real justice, not revenge. Justice. Do you think I'll let that pass? Before Ethan could respond, Karuk appeared on the steps. He'd been listening. My daughter is right, the chief said. This is our fight too. Blackwood has stolen our land, dignity, peace. If we can stop him, we must try. But your people, my people will follow me if I explain why. And with your help, maybe we finally have a chance against that man. Kuruk extended his hand. Will you work with us, Ethan Walsh? Apache and White together against a common enemy? Ethan looked at the extended hand. In it, he saw years of hate that could end. He saw justice for his father. He saw a future where two peoples didn't have to be enemies. He took Karuk's hand. Together. Morning arrived with a bold and dangerous plan. Karuk, Ethan, and Istas gathered in the cabin while Thomas slept. They unfolded a rough map of the territory marking Blackwood's ranch with charcoal. Here, Karuk said, pointing. Blackwood has an office in the main house. If there are documents, they'll be there. Guarded, Ethan added. He has at least 10 armed men day and night. Then we need a distraction, Istas said. Something to draw the guards away. They spent hours planning. Every detail mattered. One mistake would mean death for all. The plan was simple but risky. Istas and 2 Apache warriors would create a disturbance on the east edge of the ranch, faking cattle theft. While the guards investigated, Ethan would enter from the west with Kuruk. They'd have minutes, maybe 10, maybe 5, to find evidence before being discovered. There's a problem, Ethan said. Blackwood knows me by sight. If he sees me... That's why I'll go in, Kuruk interrupted. You'll watch outside. I'll search for the documents. You can't read English. But I can recognize signatures, official seals, land maps. The chief smiled slightly. I'm not ignorant, just different. Istas looked at both men. What if Blackwood is in his office? Then we improvise, Ethan said simply. That night, under a new moon, the group moved. Istas rode with silent grace, her face painted with ceremonial lines. The warriors accompanying her were young but competent. Be careful, Ethan told her before they separated. I always am. Her eyes held his for an extra moment. You too. Blackwood's ranch spread like a small kingdom. White fences, elegant stables, a 2-story main house that screamed stolen wealth. Ethan and Kuruk waited in the shadows. Minutes dragged like hours. Then, shouts from the east. Gunfire. Confusion. The guards ran toward the noise. Ethan counted. 1, 2, 3, 4 men abandoning their posts.
Now, he whispered.
They moved like shadows. Karuk was surprisingly quiet for a man his size. They reached the back window of the main house. Ethan forced it, old, poorly maintained. It opened with a soft creak. Inside, everything smelled of expensive tobacco and whiskey. Paintings on walls, thick carpets. The office was at the end of the hall. The door was locked. Kuruk pulled out a thin knife, manipulated the lock. Click. Open. A desk dominated the room. Filing cabinets, maps on walls, a safe in the corner. Search fast, Ethan murmured, watching the door.
Kuruk methodically checked drawers. Papers, contracts, letters. His fingers moved quickly despite not being able to read every word.
Here, he said suddenly. He pulled out a thick folder. Apache land maps. Dates match attacks. And this. He showed pages with names and numbers. Payments. To men. Garrett is here. Ethan looked over his shoulder. It was true. Records of payments for special services dated exactly when the biggest attacks happened. Take everything, Ethan said. We need... Light turned on in the hallway. Heavy footsteps. Hide, Ethan hissed. Kuruk slid behind thick curtains. Ethan had no time. He froze when the door opened. Silas Blackwood entered, tall, silver-haired, immaculate suit even at midnight. His hand held a pistol. Well, well, he said with a voice smooth as silk. Ethan Walsh. I should have imagined the son would come snooping eventually. Blackwood. Looking for something specific, or just general curiosity? His eyes gleamed with cruel amusement. I was looking for truth, and I found it. Ethan pointed to documents on the desk. Ah, yes, my records. Very meticulous, don't you think? But worthless as evidence. Private business, you see. Perfectly legal. Payments to men to kill innocents. Proves nothing, Blackwood interrupted. Just numbers and names. Could be payments for anything. Construction, security, transport. He smiled. You'd need witnesses, and witnesses have a way of disappearing. Like my father disappeared. Your father was a fool. He was in the wrong place, saw the wrong things. I offered him money for silence. He refused out of stupid pride. Blackwood shrugged. So I made a necessary decision. Rage boiled in Ethan's veins. Confessing to murder? To whom? To you? Blackwood laughed. You'll be dead in minutes. Intruder shot on my property, completely legal. He raised his pistol. The curtain exploded. Kuruk emerged like a storm, knife gleaming. Blackwood turned, fired. The bullet grazed Kuruk's arm but didn't stop him. The Apache chief struck the pistol, sending it flying. Both men fought, overturning furniture, breaking a lamp. Ethan grabbed the documents, stuffing them in his shirt. Window. They had to get out through the window. Kuruk! Let's go! The chief gave a final blow that sent Blackwood staggering, then ran. They jumped through the window together just as guards entered through the front door. Shouts! Gunfire! Bullets whizzing! They ran to where they'd left horses. Istis appeared from the darkness, her distraction completed. Mount up! She shouted. They galloped into the night, leaving chaos behind. They didn't stop until they were miles away, hidden in a rocky canyon. Only then did they allow themselves to breathe. Did you get it? Istis asked, looking at her father's bleeding arm. Ethan pulled crumpled documents from his shirt. We got it. Kuruk smiled despite the pain. And Blackwood confessed. You heard it. I heard it, but my word against his is worth nothing. Then we need to make these documents speak for themselves, Istis said, examining the papers. Take them to federal authorities, higher than the local sheriff that Blackwood controls. Ethan nodded. I know a man in the territorial capital, an honest judge. If he can see this,
Then tomorrow we ride, Kuruk decided. All together. Apache and White, bringing truth to light. They looked at each other. Three people from different worlds, united by shared justice. And somewhere behind them, Blackwood shouted orders to his men. The war had barely begun. The journey to the territorial capital took 3 days of hard riding. Ethan, Kuruk, and Istas traveled with hidden documents, each shadow on the road a potential threat. They knew Blackwood wouldn't surrender easily. A man with so much to lose was more dangerous than a cornered snake. Federal Judge Marcus Thornton was a man of 60 years, white hair, eyes that had seen too much corruption. When he saw Apache and White Man enter together, his surprise was evident. "Ethan Walsh," he said, recognizing him. "What brings a solitary man like you to my office?" "Justice, Judge. For my father. For the Apache people. For everyone." Ethan placed the folder on the desk. "And evidence against Silas Blackwood." For the next hours, Thornton examined each document meticulously. Land maps, payment records, dates coinciding with attacks. His expression darkened with each page. Kuruk spoke, his English careful but clear. "That man killed my brother. Killed Ethan's father. He made us enemies to steal our lands." "And I have a witness," Ethan added. "Takala, an Apache elder, saw Blackwood's men dressed as Apache the night of the murder." "I'll need her testimony," Thornton said. "And more. I need Garrett, the foreman. If we can make him confess—" "He won't confess voluntarily," Istas observed. The judge smiled slowly. "Then we'll make it involuntary. I have ways." Marshal Thompson and 6 federal men rode with them back. Thornton, too, determined to see justice personally. Arriving near Blackwood's ranch, they found something unexpected. The entire town gathered in the main square. Farmers, merchants, families, and in the center, Blackwood on an improvised platform giving a speech. "These savage Apache attacked my ranch," he shouted. "They robbed. They destroyed. The government must act." The crowd murmured, some nodding. Old hatreds were easy to awaken. Thornton dismounted, his judicial presence commanding immediate silence. "Silas Blackwood, I have an arrest warrant for you." Blackwood paled, but quickly recovered his composure. "On what charges, Judge?" "Murder, conspiracy, land fraud." Thornton unfolded documents. "We have your own records. Payments to mercenaries, maps showing Apache lands you coveted." "That's ridiculous. Private records can be interpreted 1,000 ways." "And what about eyewitness testimony?" Kuruk stepped forward. "Takala saw your men dressed as Apache." "Word of a savage against mine," Blackwood spat. "And the word of your own foreman?" Marshal Thompson pushed Garrett to the front. The man with the facial scar looked defeated. "This man already confessed everything, in exchange for a reduced sentence." Garrett lowered his head. "It's true. Blackwood paid us. We dressed as Apache. We attacked settlers. We killed James Walsh when he saw too much. We killed the Apache chief's brother the same night." His voice broke. "I fired the rifle. I killed those men." Silence fell over the square like a heavy blanket. Blackwood tried to run. Marshal Thompson grabbed him, handcuffing him. "Not so fast!" The crowd exploded. Some shouted anger, others shock. Apache and whites looking at each other, understanding decades of hate built on lies. Thornton raised his hands, asking for silence. "Listen, for years, 2 peoples have spilled blood. But blood was spilled by one man's greed, not by real differences." He pointed to Ethan and Kuruk. "These 2 men, enemies by history, worked together. They risked their lives for truth. If they can overcome hate, why can't we all?" An old farmer shouted, "My son died in an Apache raid 5 years ago." "Are you sure it was Apache?" Thornton responded. Or was it Blackwood's men dressed as Apache?
The question hung in the air. Doubts planted, certainties wavering. Istas stepped forward, her voice clear. My people also lost much, sons, fathers, land. But if we keep hating, Blackwood wins from his cell. We destroy ourselves. She looked at the crowd. Or we can choose differently. We can choose peace.
An elderly Apache woman stepped forward, then a white farmer. They looked at each other, decades of distrust between them. Slowly, they extended hands. They shook. Others followed. Apache and whites mixing cautiously, speaking for the first time without weapons between them. It wasn't an instant happy ending. Decades of hate didn't disappear in a moment. But it was a beginning. 6 months later. Ethan worked on his cabin, expanding it. Now it had 2 more rooms, one for visitors, another for the future. Istas appeared on the porch carrying a basket. Thomas sends his regards. He's completely recovered.
I'm glad to hear it. She sat beside him. The last months had been transformative. Weekly meetings between Apache and settlers, trade, fair land treaties, not perfect, but real progress. My father wants to invite you to a ceremony next week, Istas said. Harvest celebration. First time we've invited white men.
I'll go.
Ethan paused.
Istas, there's something I want to ask you.
What?
These months, working together, getting to know each other better. He took her hand. Would you consider staying here, with me, building something new together? Tears shone in Istas's eyes. Are you asking me? Yes. I know we're from different worlds, but maybe that's why we work. We represent a bridge between peoples. His voice softened. I love you, Istas. I didn't plan this, but it happened.
I love you too. She smiled through tears. And yes, 1,000 times yes.
They embraced as the sun painted the sky in golds and roses. 2 worlds, once enemies, now united in hope.
In the town square, Apache and white children played together. Merchants exchanged goods without visible weapons. Elders from both sides shared stories. It wasn't perfect. It never would be. Some rejected change, but the seed was planted. And in a distant cell, Blackwood awaited trial. His empire of lies crumbled. Karuk visited the cabin that afternoon, saw his daughter in Ethan's arms, and smiled. My wife would be proud, he said simply.
Of what?
Istas asked. Of seeing our family grow, of seeing peace. He looked at Ethan. Welcome to the family, son. The word son resonated. Ethan, an orphan for 10 years, finally had family again. Blood had created war, but honor, true honor, had created peace. And as the sun set over Montana, 3 people from 2 worlds looked together toward the tomorrow they would build together.